Welcome to Quick Shots, a short format traditional archery podcast, where we introduce you to some of the world's most influential traditional archers, and occasionally, some random dudes.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Quick Shots. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell notification. We upload a new episode every Wednesday, and they just keep getting better and better. If you or someone you know is an interesting trad archer, leave a comment below. We'd love to get you on the show. If you want to support the channel, head on over to the tradlifearchery.com. We have toques, we have hats, we have mugs, just a bunch of stuff over there. And anything you buy goes to support this channel. We do really appreciate it. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Quick Shots. I'm your host, Mick Chambers. We're here with Kevin Merrow from the TradGeeks podcast. Hey Kevin, how you doing?
Great, Mick. Thanks for having me on the show.
My God, thanks for joining us. First of all, I got to give you crap for, you blatant ripoff of the Archery Geek. Do you have anything to say about that?
No, none at all. Hey, we're all geeks at heart, right?
I know. Just for our listeners, TradGeeks was like 12 years before I even considered. And I had no idea.
It's been a long.
I'm on the air apologizing to you because I had no idea. I would have strayed away from it. So
no. Honestly, we've been at it for a long time, just kind of as a hobby and when we can. But I wish we could do more with it, but I just don't have the time with my life. So
what? So take us a little bit through that. So first of all, can you talk a little bit about TradGeeks and what you guys have done in the past? Because it is pretty cool. And if people haven't watched that, they should go back and watch your episodes or listen to.
Yeah. Well, I started TradGeeks back in either 2010 or 2011. Just started our own forum to kind of discuss traditional archery with my buddies, and one thing led to another, and it more or less turned into a content producing company. I think we were one of the original traditional archery podcasts out there. There was a few out there that's been around even longer than mine. And then we got into photography, cinematography, a little bit of education for the traditional archer through the podcast and some videos on YouTube. But it just kind of turned into just a passion of mine through photography, cinematography. My good buddy Mark helped me for years with that. And then he kind of switched back to a compound, which is great. Like, traditional archery is not for everybody, and I'm sure we'll get into that. Yeah. But if it wasn't for Mark, TradGeeks probably would have never reached where it has. Yep. I'm just trying to keep the legs moving on it and stay relevant with all you guys ripping out the content every week. It's tough to stay relevant, but we have fun doing it. So,
well, and you're. I always say this to people, like good creators like you, when you put content out, you put out really, really good quality content. I just put out half-ass shit. So you guys are like, you know what I mean? You guys are just like so good. Your content's so good. And
yeah, I try to put out, I think it's like artistic side of me. Like, I like to put out good photos. And if you notice now, it's more just Kevin_Merrow on Instagram. I kind of transitioned everything from, I still have the TradGeeks brand because we do sell tabs and strings and shirts and hats, and we still have the podcast, still lots of gear sponsors that we're associated with. So I keep that rolling, but it's turned into more of a personal thing for myself and my son. And then my buddies help me out as well. So like, I really enjoy the photography side of things. So that's what I'm passionate about and I can put out. But, I like the raw stuff too. I like watching more raw stuff. You can only watch so many films now and so many center photography. Like, I've seen enough of those shots now where it gets boring. Like, I just like the education side of things. So anything I tune into personally is just educational. So rather it's like the hunting public guys, it's rural or born and raised, or as far as the hunting side of things go. And then obviously the push and Stickbow Chronicles and yourself and guys putting out content for education. I love tuning into that stuff as well. But yeah, there's a place for us all, and it's just fun that there's so many of us that have like minds trying to put out good content for everybody. It's pretty cool.
The trad community is really, really awesome. And they've been embracing, what I've been doing. So I really appreciate that. And, it's guys like you that got things started off, kicked it off and made it okay, or made it kind of cool to be a geek. And it really, I mean, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, but we're all kind of geeky, you know, trad archers, especially because we worry about the most minute detail on our arrows and what our setup looks like and how we do our tune. And, you know, oh, I'm not shooting that bow because it's from here. I got to get, you know, so there's a lot of that stuff. Hey, how about we go back just a little bit though? I want to find out,
absolutely.
and I want to talk, I want everyone to understand where you started off your archery career and how that evolved into trad archery.
Yeah, you know, I was, you know, born and raised a hunter from my father, you know, and I've been passionate about the outdoors since I was 10 or 11 years old. I was in the woods with him, whether I was hunting or not. And hunting, my dad only hunted with a rifle, and I just didn't spend enough time in the woods. I wanted more. So I took up archery on my own. My cousin kind of showed me a little bit, but unfortunately, I had to learn all the trial and tribulations myself. And that was with a compound. And I spent hunting with a compound for quite a few years. And 9 years ago, I switched to a traditional bow. My good friend Aaron, that helps me a lot with TradGeeks, switched to traditional archery. And he's like, Kev, you just got to make the switch. I think it would fit you well. And he knew me since elementary school. So he knew what kind of a person I was. And I picked up the stick bow that year, dove head first, sold everything that was compound related, was successful my first year, luckily. And I've been hooked ever since. I love the fact that it is challenging. It requires a lot of hard work. That just fits my personality. So that's where I think it's fit well for me. I just love it.
And you're teaching your son now.
Yes. Yeah.
The you know, the hunting and that, and he was successful this year, as I recall.
He was, you know, Finn is a lot like me, if not more passionate and more of a hard worker, more dedicated probably than I was at that age, for sure. You know, he's 8 years old. I don't have words to describe him.
Oh, I know. Oh my God.
My buddies know him well, you know, Aaron and Derek, and they've been there for everything with Finn. And, you know, I can remember taking him up to ETAR at, I think he was 3 years old, 3 or 4. And he hiked every single course with us, never complained, never whined. And he's been doing it with us since he was a little young guy. So a lot of guys are probably seeing Finn hunting with a stick bow at 8 and thinking, oh, he's too young, or maybe he should be doing something else. But he doesn't want to. He has the option. He can take a rifle. He can take a crossbow, compound, whatever he wants to do, he does. And I'm there to support him. But he likes to do things the hard way. He's a hockey player. And if anybody knows how hockey is, it's rough, it's tough. From a young age, they're hard-working athletes. And I think it just fits right into that for him. So he was successful with recurve. Shot a doe this year, and we hunted rifle season with the rifle. But I imagine here second season he'll want to get back out. So that's another thing my hunting has kind of transitioned to. I still take a bow with me and hunt, but it's with him pretty much all the time. I'd say I might have got out 30 hunts here in Pennsylvania, and that doesn't count Colorado when I went elk hunting with Aaron, but 30 hunts in a stand here in Pennsylvania, and I bet Finn was with me 26 times. I mean, he is getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning where I'm a mobile hunter, mostly even on my private property, hanging 2 stands every morning. He's climbing up in or sitting at the base of the tree for an hour before I get ready, and cameras, and deals with me taking DSLRs and hanging camera arms. And I mean, for him to put up with that, let alone wanting to still go, you know, is pretty incredible. But yeah, I can't say enough about the kid. He's pretty special.
So what you're saying is that I should have had him on the show and not you. I should have had the real
pretty much. I'll tell you what.
the real hunter on the show.
The kid. I asked him the other day, we were on our way to hockey. I said, "Hey, buddy, you want to do a podcast with me?" He's like, "Yeah, Dad, let's do a podcast." And I haven't even got around to it, but
that would be so cool. You should. Oh my gosh, that would be great. I mean, honestly, I probably should have thought of that too. He probably could have been on here. That would have been awesome.
If he wasn't at hockey, he would be here.
So let's talk a little bit about hockey. I don't know if you know this. I'm a Canadian. I grew up. I started skating at 4, and so I played hockey all that time, and so that's really cool that he's a hockey player and he's a hunter.
Yeah.
So
That's
what's his?
awesome.
Who's his favorite hockey player? Does he have one?
Sidney Crosby, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we're really close to Pittsburgh, and he actually plays hockey out of the Lemieux Center. So he plays for the Penn's Elite team, and yeah, Sidney Crosby would be him or Jake Gensel.
That's awesome. That is awesome. What's he playing? What position? Is he centerman?
He's a defenseman,
Okay.
or center sometimes, but mostly defenseman.
That's good, man. Hard worker. You got to be a hard worker to be back on D.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, it's amazing. Not to get off topic, but how much dedication a defenseman takes, and controlling the ice and being reserved to stay back. And at 8 years old, you see a lot of kids wanting to press up, and they're not responsible. And so he fits that position pretty well.
that's good. Stay-at-home defensemen are hard to come by, like you said, at that age. It's just,
Yeah.
and we're not off topic, by the way. This is about, this podcast. I want this to be about people getting to know you as the archer, right? Not just maybe you as just the hunter, but just all around personality wise. So, I mean, our family is part of that, and you make your family a huge part of that. So that's awesome. Hey, do you mind if I ask a couple archery questions here though?
No.
So
Yeah. Shoot.
what do you currently, so you're a hunter, obviously. You've already mentioned that. Sounds like you do elk and whitetail. Turkey too as well, or?
Turkey, mule deer, anything I can hunt with a bow or get a chance to, I definitely take the bow. I mean, I can honestly say I've never been on like a once in a lifetime hunt, but I'd probably take my stick bow, even if I drew something like that. I just passionate about it.
And what is your stick bow? What do you currently, what's your?
That's a tough question because I shoot a lot of different stuff, and luckily enough, I've had a lot of bowyers work with me and send me things to try and shoot. So if it's out there, I've pretty much shot them all. Right now I shoot, I'm between 3 different bows, and I shot the Bushman Spartan this year for whitetail and for elk in Colorado. So I stuck with that one bow all year, and it's a pretty sweet bow. It's a Bushman Spartan recurve. It's kind of like a super curve or a long curve, although Steve wouldn't want me to, preface the super curve. He likes, do his own thing basically, but it's a 2-piece recurve, takes down at the handle. So it's kind of unique in that aspect.
Yeah.
Super nice bow, quick. So that's what I hunted with, but now I'm dabbling back with the Wengert Ibex 18 or 17-inch riser. So I have one of those too that Trent has sent me, and it's a beautiful bow. So I haven't killed anything with it, but I've had it for quite a few years now. So I don't know why, but last year I hunted all year with it, and I hit a big bull in Colorado. I missed a buck here in Pennsylvania. And those are my 2 opportunities. I don't shoot a lot of does, primarily because my private property, I'm kind of trying to increase the numbers. So I leave the does for Finn, but I'm going to try to take one here this second season with that bow. And then I also dabble with the Night Ridge from OMP. So it's a really good bow, cost effective. So I like shooting that bow too because it's ILF, and I really never dabbled with ILF too much. But for a lot of my followers, I think it's a really, really nice bow for them to, get into traditional archery with. And that's a metal riser. So first metal riser I've messed with.
Yeah, it looks good. I seen on your page you had put the OMP, and they were there was a holiday special or something. I don't know if they're still running that or not, but that ILF bow, that's a good recommendation for beginners because you can go up and down poundage, and then you don't have to really spend a ton of money, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly what I, suggest, because everybody asks me, like, what should I start out with? I want to know what all of my recommendations. And I'm like, do not start out heavy. Start out with a low poundage bow. And these ILF rigs are nice because of that. So you can just purchase new limbs, and they're pretty affordable. So they can just kind of grow with that bow till they know for sure that they love traditional archery and want to stick with it. And then you can spend some money on a custom.
Yeah, absolutely. Start working with a bowyer. Hey, on your Spartan, what weight are you pulling?
It is 53 pounds at 28 inches.
53. It's the big boy stick. I'm like, I must be getting old, man, because I'm like,
I'll
I'm
tell you
still,
what, it's a little overbowed for me. Steve built that bow as a prototype for me, so the limbs are a little different than his normal makeup. So we were testing it, and it came in a little heavy because it was a different glass than he was used to using, so it came in a little heavier than what I wanted.
Mhm.
I love to shoot like that 48-pound range. That's like my money spot.
Yeah, I love that too. I'm kind of around that 48 right now with my setup for whitetail. I'm actually 2 pounds lower than that, like 46. And then
Mm-hmm.
I'm using these Uka limbs, and people say that you get around 2 pounds on that, in terms of speed and kinetic energy. So that's really beneficial, especially if you're talking these, OMP, ILF rigs, and you get these really, really fast limbs, right? So it's
Yeah.
always nice to be able.
Those limbs are really nice. I had the chance when we were in Colorado. We stopped at RMS Gear on the way to the airport, and Aaron and I shot those limbs. They're pretty nice.
They're sweet. They're sweet. I love them. I love them.
Yeah, they're good.
What's your arrow setup? What do you?
So I'm running this year now. I haven't tuned since spring, so bear with me here. They're Easton Axis 400. So I'm running all iron will components. I believe I have 75 grain brass insert, 25 grain outsert, and then 200 grain iron wheels.
Wow. All right. So that's a lot of FOC right there.
Yeah, they're pretty heavy. I've shot a lot of high FOC arrows and setups. Last year I ran VAPs with tough heads, and I think I was around 32%, which is extreme. So I backed off a little bit and settled it down, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I can honestly say those high extreme FOC arrows, for me anyways, shoot really, really well. I mean, they're like arts, and my groups are always better with those arrows. Some will disagree. Maybe it's in my head, but love my setup now. The buck I shot this year, it did some damage on it. So
it was a pretty buck you got this year. I'll
thank
probably
you.
put a picture of it if you don't mind me stealing off your Instagram.
No, take anything.
Okay, thanks very much. All right, I heard you say that, so all my thumbnails will be from you from now on.
That's fine. Anything.
Because
Doesn't matter.
You are skilled. I mean, you have great eye for taking photography. So everything looks really good.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries, man. Hey, so if there was one piece of advice you would give to a brand new archer, someone getting into it, someone who listens to this podcast, I kind of feel like we have the beginner intermediate kind of range. What would that piece of advice be?
And that would be, so like compounds or traditional archery, any archer getting into,
or even it could be into hunting. Like what would be, maybe, you know what, because of your experience, why don't I break it into a category for you? So why don't we say archery first, and then I want to hear a hunting tip too, if you have one.
Yeah. Archery in general, I think if you're wanting to get into archery, you have to have that passion to be close with animals, and that connection where, for me, I can go hunting, and rather I kill a buck or a doe or anything that I'm after, if I get a nice close encounter and get to watch that wildlife in its natural state, but me as the predator being super close, that's what archery is for me as a hunter. And then archery on the other side of things, which is just, my time for myself, that I can go out every single night and shoot a few arrows. It gives my brain a little bit of relaxation, and nothing else really pops into my mind when I'm going through my shot sequence and releasing an arrow and watching that arrow fly. I can honestly say all my stresses in life, good or bad, are gone. So, that's what archery means to me. And if somebody's looking to get into archery, maybe some of those things would hit home for them. Rather, they need, a little bit of time to themselves, and not hunt at all, just get into archery in general. But if you're a hunter and want to get into archery, that's what's special about it for me. The traditional side of things, traditional archery right now is really blowing up, and a lot of people getting into it. And that is everything we've ever wanted, right? We want traditional archery to grow because it's so close to our hearts. But I feel like now it's starting to get, and maybe it hasn't yet, but it's starting to get to that point where it's like everything. Like if you're not shooting traditional archery, you're not doing it right. Or, oh, this guy killed it with a recurve. My buck's not as good because I didn't kill it with a recurve. And I don't want anyone to think that, because, you know, there's lots of guys that get into traditional archery and they go back to a compound for one reason or another. Rather, they don't have enough time to dedicate to it, because it does take a lot of time and effort, or maybe they had a bad experience. So, you know, I think if you want to get into traditional archery, you have to have a certain personality to some degree. And not everybody has it, and that's totally okay. I have a lot of buddies that hunt with compounds. Mark's one of them. Mark loved traditional archery, was successful with traditional archery. He just doesn't have the time, and he didn't want to have to dedicate the time. He loves to hunt, but he's a gadget type of guy. Compound is more Mark's speed. But Mark got into archery because of me, and naturally followed that traditional archery path and kind of settled into a compound. And maybe he'll come back to traditional archery, maybe he won't, but he's still having a blast doing it. So, you know, for anybody looking to get into traditional archery, just make sure it's the right decision for you.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I kind of want to ask you, like, what do you think that personality is that would fit traditional archery? It's a tough question, because
it's a tough question. You know, I always look at my life as like, you know, and I'm a grinder. I love to grind. I do really well in my life with lots of irons in the fire. And that's partially why my life is so hectic at times. And I'm a doctor of chiropractic. I have a farm. I have cattle. I have 3 kids. I have TradGeeks. I have hockey now. You know, and my family's first, but I have to be constantly grinding. And sometimes for me, that means getting like beat down and getting back up. And when I'm finally successful, it means more to me, and I feel more satisfaction. And partially why I switched to traditional archery is I shot a few good deer with a compound. And I was like, wow, that was awesome. I loved it. I watched a deer die in front of me, but I was just missing something. I was like, it was almost too easy for me. And not that that's a good thing, you know, maybe I shouldn't feel that way. But it was just, I needed to work harder for that success. And now that I've been successful with a traditional bow for quite a few years, I can honestly say I've never lost that. When I kill a deer, I feel like I did something. And, you know, I hold animals' lives probably to a higher degree than most people. I really respect the animals, and, you know, I can't sleep if I make a shot that, you know, I'm up all night long. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I beat around the bush a little bit with that, but
no, I think you're bang.
My Bay personality is probably like,
what's that? Sorry, say that again.
Like that type A personality is the type of personality that you would need to get into traditional archery.
I think I can sum it up as, if you could survive, you know, 3 weeks of torture in a Russian gulag, you could probably, traditional archery is probably for you.
Yeah.
It's
yeah. You know, and honestly, it's getting to that point now where for me, for the last probably 3 or 4 years, I don't look at it as a handicap at all. Like I go to Colorado with a stick bow, never killed a bull. I've killed a cow. And, you know, you spend all year to go out there for 1 week. The normal right guy would take a compound. Like, I don't, you know what I mean? If they really wanted one on the wall, you have to be okay with coming home with nothing and still finding success in that hunt.
So when you went out there, were you taking long range shots? I'll say long range for trad.
You know, I have in the past. When I went out for elk, I really practiced long range. And this year when I went out there, I didn't, maybe 35, 40 yards tops. And I felt pretty comfortable at 40, but just I practice more of just keeping my composure and that mental side of things, because I do pretty well in those situations. But when a bull's standing 15, 20 yards and it's a big bull screaming, it's hard to keep things together, especially with a traditional bow if you don't hit all your stops and think about things. And that 2 years ago when I hit that bull in the shoulder, it haunts me every single day, and it was a 330 bull. It was a really good bull. Aaron called it in for me. I mean, just picture perfect, and I choked, and that haunts me. So, this year before we went out, I just focused on my mind game. I put a clicker on my bow, and I felt like I was in a better place this year. I just didn't have an opportunity to succeed with that. But, I'm all about getting the animal close. So.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. My buddy, Cody, just did an interview with the Stick Bow Chronicles, and he was talking about, success and not success that he's had recently. It's tough. It's tough listening to that, but I appreciate you sharing that, because people have to understand that, right? I mean, it's not all, you're not always going to be successful. You got to be, and like, as you said, hold those animals to a higher standard, get out there, practice as much as you can, hit all your stops, which I'm going to ask you about right now.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to hear what your shot process is and how you go through it both physically and mentally.
Yeah. So, for me, I really believe in what Joel Turner preaches and the shot process. So, and Joel will probably yell at me because I won't say what I should be saying, but naturally I focus on my stance first, and my grip on the bow and my hook on the string, and make sure everything's lined up there first. Then it's literally, for me, now that I've been doing it for so long, is just get it done, get it back. Once I get it back and get that shot process or my anchor complete, I focus on the aim, which is literally probably a half a second, watch it, keep it. And then it's my transfer to hold position. So I just literally, once I say watch it, keep it, it's here we go. And I start that action, which is just a fine motor movement to transfer to hold. And my click goes off and I break. So
nice.
That's it.
So
that's all running through my head if I'm not saying it, out loud. So, and I'm teaching Finn the exact same stuff. And a lot of guys comment on his videos like, wow, that kid has a lot of control and his bow arm's steady and he's working for it. But I mean, I'm standing in the yard every single day talking to him, working through a shot process, and that's helped him tremendously. If he didn't have that, there's no way he'd keep it together, because if you saw the IG story when he shot his doe, he's like Fred Eichler when he hits a deer.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
I know. And I'm more calm. I make that shot and I just stay calm, but I got the typewriter legs going. And but he breaks down once it happens. So if he didn't have something to think about, he'd probably get half drawn. That arrow would be going out through the woods.
Yeah, most kids at that age, man, I don't know how that's great training too. Maybe coaching is in your future. That's your next step, where you're just
I don't know. I have the patience to do it with my son, and I probably will with my daughters too if they get into it. But man, I love teaching. I love educating. I just don't have the time. I really don't. So I put all my effort into Finn and myself, and that's it. I get a lot of questions on Instagram, and I'm sorry if I don't return them all. I just don't have the time. So I try to use the podcast to get out some information. And Aaron and I we're going to do another one here tonight after I get off with you, but
okay.
We're trying to get back to, I say it on the podcast all the time, we're going to get back in the swing thing every week. And then a month goes by. It's like, what happened? But I like the education side of things. If I had more time, maybe when I'm retired, if that ever happens, but
Yeah, I mean, you have the background in terms of the biomechanics. You know all that stuff from being a chiropractor, and you know all the body, all the muscle
Yeah.
groups that have to be engaged and stuff like that. So you can actually put your school, your education, also into your archery. So that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, and then my undergrad's exercise physiology and kinesiology. So everything really, like literally, Tom and I can have conversations on the phone. I don't need to see him doing it, and he can be like, "Kev, you got this, right?" And I was like, "Yep, yep, yep." He's like, "Perfect," like because I can just mentally see the actions happening.
We're talking Tom Klum.
Yeah, Tom Klum. So through just my schooling and dissecting cadavers and everything else, you really get a good visual of what happens inside the body and what actions, and that's all it is. If anybody really like wants to do their own education with it, just look up shoulder motions, flexion, extension, abduction, external rotation, internal rotation, and see how that shoulder moves.
Mm-hmm.
The scapula moves on the rib cage and what muscles make those actions happen. And it will help you substantially if you start diving into form and listening to Tom and Joel's stuff online. Yeah.
Hey, I want to thank you very much for being on the show. I know you're a busy guy. Like you said, we're all grinding, and you're going, sounds like you're going twice as hard as anyone. So I appreciate you doing this. I really do.
Anytime, Mick, you name it, I'll jump back on for you.
That's so awesome. Hey, and tell everyone where they can go to follow you or see you.
Yeah, so you can go to TradGeeks.com. That's the website, and that's where our podcast is on there. Some gear and stuff you can buy, and YouTube videos, some how-to videos. So that's our main stuff. Instagram, you can go to TradGeeks_.com. And if you look in the profile, it just sends you to my personal, which is Kevin_Merrow. And pretty much I do a lot more on Instagram than anywhere else. So if you just go to @Kevin_Merrow, that's pretty much where you'll get links to everything else through the stories and the links in the profile.
That's awesome, man. Thank you again very much. And thanks everyone for paying attention and sticking around with us. We do appreciate everyone that watches. Don't forget to share, like, subscribe. We will talk to you next time. Thanks again.
You bet, Mick.